touched on, so we're not gonna, but this ought to give you a little bit more information, I hope. All right. So what is a boundary? What is a role boundary? Okay. It's a line that determines the limits, how much is okay. So you can see there's okay and not okay. There's a big line in between the two. I think he talked about this. This is about what you will tolerate or not tolerate, right? The boundary is about how you will allow people to, what you'll allow them to say and do, and what they can expect from you. Holy smokes. I don't know what happened there. So healthy boundaries. Somebody asks you something, you feel, you're confident that you can say yes or no, and you're okay when other people say no to you. Okay? So that means you have pretty healthy boundaries. You can feel free to say yes or no to someone when they ask you something, and you're comfortable if they say no. You respect yourself. This is a big one. You know when the problem is yours and when the problem is theirs. That's kind of hard sometimes, isn't it? So if mom is really frustrated and angry and is cursing because she's upset about her visitation, is that your problem or her problem?
Her problem.
It's her problem. And did she create that problem, have a hand in creating that problem? You bet. Okay? So it's not about me. I used to be the complaint department at the Mental Health Authority, and so I was the client rights officer, so everybody who had a complaint called me. And I've been cursed numerous times, up one side and down the other, and you know what? None of it was personal. None of it. Not only were they people who had a severe mental illness and may have had their behavior related to that, some of them were just really irritated. Irritated at the situation, not at me. Even though it sounded personal, it wasn't personal. So you've got to know, respect yourself, know when the problem is yours and theirs, but also I don't have to put up with that cursing, right? I'd let them get a little angry, and then I'd say, if you can't control your language, I'm going to have to hang up. And if they continue to curse, I say, I'm hanging up now. So you can hang up on somebody, but you have to announce it. Okay, you can't just say, and hang up the phone, okay? The other thing that shows you have healthy boundaries is that you share your personal information gradually, right? Dr. Sines talked about that. You know a person who doesn't have good boundaries, they're telling you their whole life story in the first 5 minutes you met them. That is a big red flag. And then what we just talked about, you don't tolerate abuse or disrespect. And that's kind of a strong way of saying you do not tolerate, but you don't. But you say, if you treat people with dignity and respect, when you're letting them know what your boundaries are, it's going to go a long way. Okay, so, and the parents that we work with, the families we work with, that some of these kids, not very many people are treating them with dignity and respect. Okay, so it goes a long way. If you have healthy boundaries, you know your own wants, needs, and feelings, and you communicate them clearly in your relationship. So my grandmother had this habit when she was really mad, she would start slamming the kitchen cabinets. So we all knew she was mad, right? Because there's a lot of noise in the kitchen. But we had to guess what she was mad about. She wasn't going to tell you. You had to guess. That is not good personal boundaries. She was not a good communicator. And you know when you have healthy boundaries that you're responsible for your own happiness and you will allow others to be responsible for theirs. So you're not going to take on everybody else's problems. And mom may have had 3 strikes against her out of the gate, right? I can have empathy for that and sympathy for that, but I cannot take it on, right? And so maybe she was in foster care. Maybe she has no parenting skills. Maybe she's been in a bunch of domestic violence relationships. You know, maybe it's just been one thing after another, born into poverty. You know, no transportation, no job skills, no education, all of those things. I can understand that, but I don't have to take it on. Everyone's responsible for their own happiness and their own fulfillment. Sometimes, just like what Mary Walraven was saying on Saturday, they just don't have the tools. I can give somebody the tools, help them access the resources. And we're going to talk about resources in just a minute. You know your limits when you have healthy boundaries, and you let others define their limits. You ask for help. This is very important as a CASA volunteer. CASA volunteers get under stress. They get overwhelmed sometimes, and they don't want to ask for help. Every one of you, not every one of you, a lot of you are that type A personality. I'm going to get it, I'm going to get it done, I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it right. Everybody here wants to do a great job. I do. Everybody wants to do a great job, but you need to know when to ask for help. So today, I hate to ask for help, just by the way. Hate it. I want to do everything perfectly, and I want to get it done myself, right? But today blew up. Kathy had to read all the court reports. AJ had to help. Other things happen, and I had to ask for help. Kathy put out all the snacks, all these things that I usually take care of, and I hate it, but you know I've learned how to do it. Sometimes you just have to know your limits, and you have to know how to ask for help. One big thing that happens is CASA volunteers, if they're not meeting their minimum requirements, they stop communicating with us. You know, it's because they feel bad about saying, I'm too busy right now, I can't fulfill my CASA role. It's much better to and we're no harm, no foul. Nobody's ever going to hold it against you. Family happens, life happens, jobs happen. If you get overwhelmed, just, hey, I can't do this right now. I want to take a break, or I need to step off this case. That's a big thing, I think, with volunteers. So you need to be able to ask for help, or say to somebody, I need to take a 2-week break off of this CASA. I put in 15 hours last week and I'm crazy. You know, let's say your case blew up. You know, I need to take a break. That's what supervisors and me and AJ are here for, is to help you do that. Okay? Don't compromise your values or integrity to avoid rejection. That's tough, right? Who doesn't want to be liked? Everybody wants to be liked. But that's not what we're here for. Okay? Not with the parents, not with the attorneys, not with anybody. CASA is the squeaky wheel that gets it done. It's an adversarial process. Attorneys may be really mean to you, but that's not personal either. They are advocating for their clients, whether that's the kid, the mom, or the dad. They're advocating for their client, and so it's not personal. That's really important. So why are you getting this training on boundaries twice? Because we don't expect you to know how to do things, right? You're not supposed to know where the boundaries lie. We don't want you to have to figure it out. And you want to be aware of your own issues before you do anything else. So let's look at why boundaries are critical. You have a high level of responsibility. All of you figured that out by now, right? This is a pretty big role. It's a volunteer role, but it's critical, it's a legal role, and it's really important. So, and I know all of you know that, and I know you've been carefully considering it. So you can have a significant amount of stress related to your CASA role. It's really important that you be able to ask for help and know when you need to help making a decision, when you need input from other people. If you've got a lot of stress going on, it's going to affect your ability to make good decisions. You want to be helpful and your intentions are good, but while the world is, I'm judging myself by my intentions, the world is judging me by my actions, right? Nobody know, and the road to hell is paved with what? Good intentions. You work with really high risk or at-risk populations, so you're dealing with people who've suffered abuse and neglect, who have alcohol and drug problems, who may have a mental illness. So you're working at what they call an at-risk population. And most of those people tend to have pretty poor personal boundaries. Most of you have not worked with that kind of population before. None of you are licensed social workers, right? And even the licensed social worker, like Mary talked about, everybody's new at it at one time or another. Okay? So again, you may encounter people who have boundary issues, and most of you, as I said, are not professionally trained. You want to be aware, really aware of who you are, so that you can be successful in this role. And that's why we ask a lot of personal questions in that interview, because we want to get to know you and just make sure you're in this for the right reasons, and also so we don't push any of your buttons, right? All right, I'm going to go boundaries, appropriate relationships. Let's talk about appropriate relationships. A CASA does not give expensive gifts. And remember, we talked about you don't want to be the gift giver. You don't want to every time you show up bring something, or they're going to say, hey, Taylor's here and where's my game? Where's my whatever? Okay? Never, ever give legal advice. Every person you're working with, mom, dad, child, has an attorney. Okay? Don't try to provide counseling. You can listen. Don't try to solve problems. Listen and give resources. Don't try to be the child's parent. Don't try to be mom's parent. Okay? That's really important. And don't, of course, engage in inappropriate relationships. Anybody want to explain what inappropriate might be? Well, I mean, it could be sexual relationship, absolutely not. And I used to teach this whole thing about ethics and boundaries and all this stuff at MHMR, and I would say, don't have sex with the clients. That seems pretty obvious, doesn't it? Do you think people did it?
Nope.
Absolutely. So I can be that direct and people still do the wrong thing. So inappropriate relationships, certainly a sexual relationship. Any type of dual relationship, so don't babysit the kids, don't put them in your car, don't let them come to your house. All those kinds of things would be inappropriate. Don't give mom a ride, don't go pick her up at her job, don't take her lunch at her job. You know, those, just anything that feels wrong, it is. Yeah, always ask first. If you're thinking to yourself, should I do this? Don't. You don't, call first, okay? But
Kate, just for clarification, the professionals on the case do the same sort of things when they're too, like if I'm dating a lawyer and then he ended up in one of these cases.
that could be a conflict of interest, yeah. So if that happens, just let your supervisor know, we'll talk about it. We'll work at it. Okay, so that's really cut and dry, right? Don't have sex with clients, very straightforward. Being friendly is good, being a friend is better. What do you guys think about that?
No.
Why?
It's a professional relationship.
It's a professional relationship, okay? If being helpful is the goal, then being more helpful must be better.
No,
Why not?
because if you're more helpful, they won't learn to do it by themselves.
Exactly. We don't want to enable people to stay where they are. We want to give them the resources to do something else. How do you know if you might have weak boundaries? Your relationships might be overly dramatic. Are you that person that gets the crazy friends all the time? Doesn't always mean you have weak boundaries. Sometimes it means you give a lot of unconditional regard to people. But if it's happening a lot, I don't know. If you're easily overwhelmed emotionally, get a lot of guilt and anxiety, this is a big one. If you feel like you have to rescue people, pay attention to that. Because you're going to come across a lot of people in your CASA work that need some rescuing. But we can't do it, right? They're going to have to learn to get on their own 2 feet. Okay? High need for approval, socially anxious, feeling tired for no reason. Oh my God, I feel tired, but I have such a good reason. Secretly feeling that others don't respect you. And if you're a tiny bit annoyed most of the time. You know what I mean? Like, I'm resentful because people keep asking me to help them. Of course, I keep doing it, but now I'm irritated about it, right? Weak boundaries, okay? This is it. You agree to do things you don't want to do to avoid disappointing other people. And everybody's, I mean, your mother makes you do those things, right? Your mother brings it out in you. I know it. Not that my mother does. But, you know, it takes some time to build those kind of boundaries, especially in our closest relationships, but certainly with people who are testing the boundaries all the time. You're resentful because you feel you're doing more for others than they're doing for you. You feel that most of what you do is for other people rather than yourself. Oh, and this is a big one. The stress you feel about disappointing others is greater than the stress of doing something you don't want to do. Oh, that's tricky, isn't it? Right? And this is about being aware. Not that we're going to fix all of this, but we need to be aware of it so we can say, wow, I'm really getting stressed out because I don't want to disappoint my CASA supervisor and I'm not letting them know that I just got new responsibilities at work and I can't see my kids this month. I don't want to disappoint anybody. I want to be a good CASA volunteer. You know, then what happens? Kids don't get seen. It's time for a court report. It's 2 months down the road. Oh, well, yeah, I haven't seen my kids. I haven't done this. I haven't done that. Now, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? If you tell us in the beginning, we can work it out, right? It's harder to fix if it goes on for a while. Okay, burnout. Anybody ever been burned out at a job? Yeah, Lacey, you're an emergency room nurse, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me what burnout's like for you, or when you experienced it. What was it like?
You don't want to go to work anymore.
That's
You
right.
wake up and dread going to work, and then it's time to find a new job.
That's right. That's exactly right. And the only reason I know it is because I've had it. So I'll explain. I'll tell you this. My first job out of college, I worked part-time as an HIV educator and part-time in a family planning clinic doing health education. And it was extremely stressful. And in my HIV job, they were both part-time and they made one full-time job. It was grant funded, so that's how it worked. But I was probably working 40-plus hours doing HIV outreach and education, plus my 20-plus hours working at the family planning clinic. I was really burned out. It was high stress. People were dying, right? I mean, in the early 90s, we were not seeing people who were HIV infected. We were seeing people who were dying of AIDS. It's extremely stressful. And one day I was in the family planning clinic, and we all, this is probably more information than you want, we always offer people condoms, right? Because does birth control pill stop sexually transmitted disease? No. So we always offered that. And we offered that because if we rely on one, but you can't rely on just one partner, right? To be responsible for birth control. So I said to myself, and I had to walk all the way to the back of the clinic to get them. So I thought to myself, you know, she's just going to tell me no. I'm not even bothering to ask her or go get them. So I was mad at my clients all the time. They were irritating me, and I didn't even feel, I knew what she was going to say. I wasn't even going to ask her. So who had the problem? I denied that person maybe the one chance they had to get free birth control and disease transmission barrier, right? Because I was in a bad mood, because they were stressing me out and I was burnt out. So it's not just about what it does to me, it's about how I'm treating other people, the clients that are depending on me. So burnout is, it's real. And the good news is once I've had it, I know what it is, and I know, that's why I'm a strong believer in the mental health day. They give you sick time, use it, right? If you're in a job that you have benefits. You know, I'm a big believer in that, because if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of the people you're charged with taking care of. Okay, questions about boundaries. I thought Dr. Science did a good job, and that video is up on YouTube, so if you want to watch it again, he's on there.
Can I have two questions?
Yes, ma'am.
When I was asking questions to Ben
Yes.
about bullying, I really wanted to become
Hold on a second.
I'm in teacher mode all the time. I wanted to be like, so how do you work with bullies? And here are some of the things.
Yes.
How would you do this? And here are some of the things. How much does that slide into the parental role?
I think it does. I think it does slide into that role. Remember, we're not a mentor role. This is a legal role. We want to build that relationship with our kids, but we aren't there to fix it either. Yeah, it doesn't mean, I could definitely say, well, it sounds like you're being bullied at school. Can we talk to, hey, have you talked to the school counselor? You know, some resources, and then following up to make sure that's happened. That kind of answer. Do you have another question?
Jennifer, I'm sorry I was pointing at you before I was trying to remember your name. Jennifer had a lot of rapport building when she was asking questions, like, hey, I have dogs too, and stuff like that. I'm assuming that's good?
Oh,
Or
yeah,
they're
that's
trying
really
to get
good.
you? And it's just, there's a line.
There's a
about how
line
much yourself
between,
you were-
yeah, we're not their counselor, we're not their therapist, we're not their teacher, and we're not their best friend either.
We can reveal, like, I have dogs too, I
I have a dog
dogs.
too, that's pretty safe. A lot of people have dogs. I wouldn't want to say, I have 2 dogs, but you know my last dog got hit by a car and he was killed and it made me feel so bad. Yeah, way too much information. But I could say, yeah, I've had a dog, I really liked having a dog. Yeah, you never know. All right, who else had questions? I thought I saw, yes, Lindsay.
So is it kind of rapport building until the trust is built and then you kind of just increase from there?
I think that's exactly right. You want to build up that trust. You know, I talked to a CASA volunteer the other day, and he drove to Dallas to see the kids and at the placement, and their visit lasted less than 30 minutes. He was really disappointed, but there were 4 kids. They were really active. They were busy. They're in their permanent placement, and they didn't really have much to say to him. They're very happy. Everything's going well, and the placement is really appropriate. So he was kind of frustrated with that because he drove so far. You know, so just warning. Kids don't always want to have a 2-hour, they're not little adults. They're not going to want to have a 2-hour conversation with you. And I kind of learned that the hard way. Well, I didn't. I was helping this girl do a camp for 8-year-olds. And she had never worked with kids before, so she gave them an hour for lunch. Our 8-year-old's going to do for an hour. I was like, no, 15 minutes is what I'm thinking. Yeah, she didn't. The first day was very interesting for her. Yeah. All right. Okie doke. I'm looking at the time. Let me get over here. All right, let's talk about community